We are trying to figure out who is going to make the best doctor. And part of that is making sure that you have the academic credentials to be able to succeed in medical school, because it is academically extremely rigorous. But in addition, there are a whole bunch of other things that doctors need to be. So for example, we need doctors to be compassionate people who want to take care of others. So one of the things we look for in your application is evidence that you too are interested in taking care of others. Sometimes we see that through volunteer work. Sometimes we see that through having done peer mentoring or tutoring. Sometimes we see that in your letters because of the way people that know you describe how you interact with other people. We're also looking for people who are good communicators. And so again, we look at the types of activities you've done to see that you've had a bunch of activities that have you working in a team. Again, we look at your letters of recommendation to see what people say about your ability to work with a group or to lead a group. Another thing that we look for is that we want to make sure that you know what you're getting into. We want to make sure that you're quite certain that you're ready to commit to this process of being a doctor. We look for people that have had some experience in the clinical arena. We think you'll be more sure that you want to go into medicine if you've spent some time in medicine and have had a chance to really see it and experience it yourself. So some people do some shadowing of physicians to get some clinical experience, but even better than that is if you have experience in the clinical realm where you were doing some of the work. So maybe you volunteered in an emergency room, maybe you volunteered for hospice, maybe you got an actual job as a certified nursing assistant or a medical assistant or a scribe. All of those are ways that you can test out the waters of what it's like to be in medicine and make sure that that's actually what you want to do. So that's an important thing that we look for as well. So the most important thing is to take a really close, hard look at your application and try to figure out where you think you might have come up short. So for example, one important thing to look at is academic metrics. If you look at the MSAR, which is an online report of all the different medical schools, you can see, for example, what our average GPA and average MCAT score are. Because we have so many more applicants to medical school than we can accept, even if your academic numbers, your GPA and your MCAT score, suggest that you would do just fine in medical school, because we have so many people, if your numbers happen to be below our average, well, then maybe that's an area that needs a little bit of shoring up. And so that might be something that you would notice. Okay, I thought this was going to be enough, but it turns out it's not. And so then you can think about, what can I do to improve my application? Maybe if my GPA was on the low side, maybe I want to think about getting a master's degree, or maybe I want to think about doing a post-bac program to improve my GPA. If your MCAT score was low, maybe you want to think about studying and retaking that test. Other times people review their application really closely and say, well, you know, I was demonstrating that I had clinical experience by doing some shadowing, but maybe actually what they're looking for is really something more than that. And so I'm going to get my EMT certification and work as an EMT for a year or two and then reapply. So that's the biggest thing, is to take a close look at your application and see if you can find any areas that you think are relatively weaker than others. I would suggest, if you have access to a pre-health advisor from your college or university, that you talk with that person and see if they can help you hone in on what the problem areas are.